Shehzad and Manojit. Let's have them on the screen now. Aadil, the union government had earlier told the Apex Court that 4,850 cases have been taken up for investigation under the PMLA in the last 17 years and proceeds of crime of nearly 1 lakh crore. It is 98,368 crores identified and attached under the provisions of the law. The government had told the court that investigation in these offences was carried out under the PMLA, including 2,883 searches. So the fact that today all the provisions have been upheld, do you see this as a setback? Because there has been narrative by all the opposition parties that there is misuse, and if anything, the centre does, has given sweeping powers to the agencies such as the ED.
Well, Maria, merely because the legality of a certain statute has been upheld by the Supreme Court does not mean that the practical manifestations of that agency are above board. We have the greatest of respect for the judgment of the Supreme Court. However, and this is our considered opinion, that the Supreme Court should have indeed delved into the malicious, continuous pattern in which the ED has been deployed against political opponents. You just shared some statistics with you. Let me just share another number with you. Since 2002, 5,422 cases have been registered by the Enforcement Directorate. Till date, there are only 23 convictions. What does that show you? What does that demonstrate? That the ED cannot carry forward its prosecution. Now, coming to the meat of the matter, how is it that there are no ED cases against the ruling party members? How is it that there are ED cases against opposition members, and the moment they switch over to the BJP, the ED cases dissipate into thin air?
Okay.
And I have a question from the BJP spokesperson. There were 17 ED notices sent to MLAs owing their allegiance to the Singh faction before the government had changed.
And what happens to those notices now?
Okay.
Shehzad, Poonawala, specifically the charge is that the ED's, the Enforcement Directorate's conviction rate is so low, and that is the reason why it is being seen as an agency which is
misused. No, that's not my charge. My charge is malicious use of the Enforcement Directorate.
So there is malicious
as an extension of the
go
BJP.
Shehzad, respond to the point being made by Aadil.
Maria, the fanciful imaginations of a Congress spokesperson do not translate into malicious manifestation of an agency just because he comes and says it on Maria's show at 10:15 at night. It has to be proven in a court of law. And therefore, unlike the courts which used to say that there were caged parrots that were being used in the CBI, no malicious manifestation has been proven before a court of law by lawyers much senior than Aadil. Perhaps I could say that and take the liberty. Example, Mr. Chidambaram and Abhishek Manu Singhvi in the last 8 years. So just because the Congress imagines it, it doesn't make it reality. Just because the Congress imagines it has immunity from investigation for corruption, it doesn't translate into reality. And Maria, I always like giving the Congress party a long rope with which they can hang themselves. Yes, there have been 23 convictions under the ED after 2014, but how many, pray, convictions took place between 2004 to 14? Zero. All right? And by the way, the Supreme Court has held that the conviction rate of a law has nothing to do with the validity of that law, because if that was the case, Maria, then a large number of our civil and criminal laws under which there are not great conviction rates even pre-2014, including murder and others, would all be struck down as invalid because there are no conviction rates. Conviction rates have nothing to do with the constitutionality of the law, and senior lawyers like Mr. Kapil Sankla will testify that the Supreme Court has said that. But let me come to a more political point that was made. Rather than waste time at 10:15 on a debate like this, if you think that the agencies have been misused, abused, then go to a court of law and prove it. But when the court of law says, and the trial court says, that Young Indians has been used as a special purpose vehicle, and therefore 406, 403, 420, 120B should be applied on accused number 1 and 2, Sonia and Rahul, and when the High Court approves of that, and when the income tax reassessment order is challenged in the High Court and Supreme Court and you get no relief, or the Calcutta High Court Division Bench says that yes, there is a scam in the SSE and there must be action, it's a public scam, or when the High Court of Delhi comes and says that no, he's not a Kattar Imandar but a Kattar corrupt in case of Mr. Satyendra Jain, or when for 2 months Satyendra Jain does not get bail from a court of law, or when there's no relief that comes from any court of law, then you must tell us that are you saying that the courts of law are vindictive and are full of vendetta? Mr. Boparai, I know that as much as you like to abuse and insult every institution of this country, the army calling it a Sadak Ka Gunda, Sansad saying that Loktantra Khatam ho gaya hai, Supreme Court, etc., etc. I'm sure at 10:30 at night, Maria, I'm sure at 10:30 at night, Mr. Aadil Boparai is not trying to undermine the authority and the
senior
competence of
advocates
the court.
who appeared, who had in fact questioned the constitutional validity were associated with the Congress party. Be it Abhishek Manu Singhvi and also Mr. Kapil Sibal in his previous avatar as a Congress leader. They questioned the constitutional validity. They faced a setback in the court because the constitutional bench said that all the provisions must be upheld. So from today onwards, Aadil, will the Congress now stop saying that there is misuse of this agency?
Maria, I'm again reiterating, perhaps you didn't understand, merely because the legality of the statutory provisions have been upheld does not mean that an agency cannot be biased. This is in response to your specific question. Now, responding to Mr. Poonawala, merely coming up with glib one-liners is not a substitute to rationale and logic. Now, let me just
coming up with imaginary arguments is not a substantive replacement for hard facts before a court. Show me one case in the last 8 years where you've proven ED has acted in a biased manner. Because you and Chidambaram say it doesn't mean it's true.
Will continue to rave and rant. I'm
not ranting. Your argument is an argument. Mine is ranting. That's perhaps the limited vision with which you look at things.
Okay, Aadil.
Thank you, Maria. Now, something which falls from the Supreme Court is, now under the PMLA statute, you have a supervisory judicial body which monitors, supervises the ED functioning, its arrests, its seizures, its confiscation, which is the appellate authority. Since September 2019, this appellate authority has been defunct. This appellate authority, which is a safeguard mechanism under the PMLA statute, has become redundant. And the Supreme Court has lamented. The Congress party's position is that when you have a statute which has derivative, stringent implications, you must come up with necessary safeguards to have a system of checks and balances.
But Aadil, the Supreme Court today has said that it has the necessary checks and balances. That's what it has said.
Is the ED only for the opposition or is the ED even for the BJP?
No. You are making a political argument again. You are making a political argument.
Let me address that. Let me address that. I'm happy to address this.
What about Mukul Roy?
Let me address
What about those 17 Shiv Sena, Eknath Shinde MLAs? Will the ED follow through on those investigations?
Okay, 20 seconds quickly.
The problem is,
and then I'll give the final words to Kapil Sankla. Yes.
The problem is biased and malicious investigation of the
It's malicious, again the same word is being used. Go ahead. 20 seconds.
I hope that some lawyers don't appear because they'll get the witnesses convicted if they start saying that usne murder kiya isliye ye murder chhod do. That's never an argument in law. Having said that, let me come to the point. Now who's interrupting, Maria? Now who's raving and ranting? Who's raving and ranting? Thank you. So Maria, I would suggest to the council present here that if he has so much of evidence against the names he's just taken, rather than waste 8 years on television disruption and obsession about Mr. Modi, go to a court of law, get an order and embarrass us on tomorrow's show, on Maria's show at 10 p.m. I'm happy for you to see you in court with the evidence you have against Mr. Mukul Roy or the evidence you have against Mr. Biswa Sarma or any other names that you're saying. Let's go to court, put them in front of the court. I'm sure you don't say the court is biased or the court is vindictive. Mr. Boparai, I hope you don't have only faith in one institution of Parivar Tantra. You have faith in all institutions.
Manojit wanted to make a point. Manojit.
Investigation by potential investigation.
Manojit,
put your money where your mouth is. Come to a court of law.
Don't worry about my money and don't worry about my mouth.
Okay, Manojit.
I am least bothered about where your mouth is because it's going in the right places for us.
Forget about the money in the mouth here, Manojit.